Absolutely. There is so much material and information that you have to go through. And I think a lot of it comes down just to having the experience under your belt and stuff. So I'll be honest, like we have such a great tight-knit community in the Arkansas chapter of PRSA that there's no way I could have passed APR without the support
of your peers.
Exactly.
That's super important.
Yeah, you've got to have that and just a lot of graciousness on some of the folks that we go through the Ready to Roll program that host us. Lisa, you do one of those for the research portion of that. And just to get that insight and knowledge from people, that's what I think really put it over the edge for me. Again, even though reading the material and everything else, built a study guide for it, that wouldn't have been effective with
you built a study guide that you've shared with candidates, and I think it's become pretty popular because it's very methodical and helps you take this thing that is pretty gigantic and break it down into sort of bite-sized components that then feels a lot more manageable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Carson was actually a mentor, part of when I went through getting my accreditation, and you shared that study guide, and I know the classes after me and ours really use that. And so I just want to reiterate the support that you need going through this, because it is a challenging process. And for me, the most challenging part was the panel presentation. I know that
which you did great on. I was actually a part of that one. You did so good on it.
Thank you. But, future classes, my class was really anxious about the panel, but that was the hardest part, just overcoming kind of the imposter syndrome of your plan, and you have to feel really confident in what you're doing and what you're talking about because you know what you're talking about, and it's going to go great, so don't worry. But that was the challenging part for me. But the support was incredible from the PRSA chapter, the Ready to Roll program, Carson, the communications group.
We have such a good program in our chapter. It's just amazing to me a lot of times how successful it has been too, and all the APRs that it has produced in our chapter.
You can almost not do it without the Ready to Roll program.
I
don't think you can do it without it.
I agree.
I think Arkansas chapter has just really perfected the process. You're never alone through that process.
Yeah, you're right. You're not. You're never alone. And I think that's critical to that process. If you attempt to do it on your own, even part of it, like when you were preparing for the panel, even sort of talking through the panel with somebody who will listen, you can bounce ideas off, and who can give you real honest feedback, not somebody who's going to spare your feelings, because the panel is challenging.
It is. It's very difficult. And like I said, the PRSA chapter, there's so many people, like Stella reviewed my presentation beforehand. Kelly Jacoby was my APR chair. And then I went through the program with one of my dear friends. So you can't do it without support. You can't do it on your own.
And just to build off of that, I mean, it's been said the support is there, but I think you've got some really dedicated individuals that want to see you succeed.
Yeah, I agree.
So
there's nobody that wants you to fail.
Yeah.
So I did not know what the APR was 2 years ago at all. I had no context of what it was, what the accreditation was, what PRSA. I was getting kind of involved in the chapter, and I had a past boss encourage myself and my coworker to go through it, and we did it together. And I didn't realize at the time, trudging through, and that the impact that it would have on my career, because it really helped me, like I said earlier, establish a baseline of what I'm doing and feel more confident in my skills. And throughout the process, I made great connections, and one of those being Carson. He was on my APR panel. He was part of a Ready to Roll class along with Lisa, and so there was a job opportunity at the communications group, and through those connections it led me here, and I think that it's the perfect place for me, and I've been able to grow so much, learn more, but also just having that APR solidifies my expertise when I'm meeting our clients or connecting in Little Rock, because I'm not from Little Rock, but it just has established me as a PR professional, and it's been a fun journey, and it's been 2 years now accredited, and I wouldn't have changed
it. Seems like it was just yesterday.
Yeah, getting pinned was crazy.
Yeah.
Because I was like, we made it. You know, it was a we made it moment with the whole class, and we still get together and go to PRSA meetings. So that's my.
Well, and I mean, aside from all the qualities that you bring to this role, just personally and professionally, APR was one of the things that we really looked at when we hired you, and we're looking for candidates.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think I sat for the exam and did my panel when I had been in the profession for probably about 10 years, maybe 11. It's probably about 11 years. And the thing that is always, it doesn't matter when you take it, whether you're a young professional, you're somebody who's been practicing for a decade, you always learn. You always learn something that then you bring to your profession, to your personal practice, and to your company, to your organization, or to your clients. So to me, that's part of the value of that process. But the value is also, and I have constantly been amazed how many times I've fallen back on the code of conduct, the ethical principles of ethical practice. It is absolutely foundational, I think, to my career and my ability to really provide the best and exceptional service to clients.
Yeah, I have my study guide on my desk that I still go back and look at things, and so it's a great resource.
Absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned, I think, overcoming that imposter syndrome. Obviously, I think earning my APR was actually a catalyst for my promotion at ComGroup when I went from PR manager to PR director.
Yeah, and it was. It absolutely was.
Yeah, so I mean that helped. I think on an initial scale, but kind of below the surface, having, like you said, that foundational baseline understanding of it and everything, I think helped me grow in that role and actually live up to it. So that was important for sure, I think. So, and I think everybody kind of has a story similar to that.
Yeah. I think you should answer first because you're our newest APR in the group.
Yeah, we've kind of already talked about it a little bit, but if you are thinking about it at all, or you're wondering about it, you need more information, there is a wealth of knowledge and support. So I would start there, just finding someone, a mentor possibly, because I know there are myself, you guys, anyone in the chapter that's accredited would love to be a mentor. And so just find your support system, even if it's a friend or a coworker going through it with, drag somebody along with you, but you've got to find that support.
I'd agree with that, and I would say really to answer that question, it's should you pursue APR? Absolutely.
Yes.
Should you pursue APR right now? That's the question I think you really should assess.
Yeah.
We've already talked about how so much of it comes down to the experience that you have under your belt, because when it comes to the test, you already said it's super challenging, and rightfully so. APR represents the best of the best. So, of course, I think given the hard work, anybody can achieve that. But when it comes down to it, the test is all about picking the best answer, not the right one. And that only comes with experience, learning from your community and things like that. So my advice would be run your own race. You don't have to.
That's great advice.
Yeah, you don't have to get out in front of that and do that first thing out of college or anything like that. Give yourself time to absorb and experience it, because it is hard. It costs money to do. It's a big time commitment.
Huge.
And you want to be one and done with this. So just from experience talking there.
Yeah, you don't want to do it again.
Right. You cannot be over prepared for the test. So set yourself up for success and go with that. Like that.
That's such a good answer. I'm not even sure what I would add to that. I think the believe in yourself and run your own race is probably the best advice really that I've ever heard. Because I don't think you can do it without support, but you can't use them as your yardstick. You have to, and that's part of the reason that the panel has become such an important part of the entire credentialing process, is that the PRSA doesn't want to just see how well you can take a test. They want to see what your practice looks like. They want to see how you think strategically. They want to see what research you've conducted, and then they want to see how do you answer challenging questions about your process. So nobody else can answer that but you. You're the only person that can do that. So I think that's a fantastic answer. And I think that the advice I would give is know you're going to make the commitment. I mean, go for it, but know you cannot be haphazard about the process. You have to commit to it, go to the Ready to Roll program, you have to set a study schedule, and then you have to stick to it. I mean, because it's just a lot of information to absorb.
Yeah, that's definitely important. I think you should answer that question first. Yeah.
We both, did you say we both turned?
Yeah, well, there's no other agency in the market that has as much experience and as many credentialed professionals as we have, but also part of what happens when people work with the communications group's PR department is they get the highest level of professional thinking, but from a team that's accessible. And it's a really nice balance of hands-on. There's not multiple layers of bureaucracy that people have to work through. You get sort of big agency thinking with a much more accessible approach. But 3 credentialed, APR credentialed PR practitioners, that's huge. That's big.
Yeah.
So,
that's important to clients. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think just bouncing off of that, because I've just so recently joined the ComGroup, that is the standard of service that we provide to our clients from the PR team, but from the agency as a whole is excellent. We don't accept anything else. And we are accessible. We're there for you all the time, but the service that we're going to provide your whole team is exceptional all the time.
It is.
That's exactly the point I would make, is that there are a million reasons why you should work with ComGroup, but I would say at the top of the heap of all of that is our commitment to service excellence, and that is, I think, part of our culture that Lisa has really instilled in this agency, I would say, and set the tone for. And I think that everything that we provide value of stems from that. So that's reflected in that level of service that we have, in the fact that we prioritize having credentialed staff, accessible and all that kind of stuff. Everything flows from that tone that you've set, is that service excellence. So plus we're fun people. So
we're fun. We're fun to work with. We're fun. And we've had national clients, big brands, who have chosen to work with the communications group over other larger agencies because of our personalized attention and because of our APR credentialed professionals. And they've told us that. They've said, we chose you because we know we're going to get ethical conduct. We know we're going to get the highest level of professionalism. It really is, I think, an added feature and benefit for a client who's considering their choices. For years, PR people had a reputation for spin. It was not a good one. And of course now we banned the word from we don't use that word in our agency. But what happens with the APR credential and the code of ethics is it begins to put, all of us know the difference between right and wrong, but we can't always define where that applies. Sometimes it's hard to say, well, for example, we will not disclose confidential information. We will not lie on behalf of a client. There are many pieces and parts that comprise the principles of that. And I think that, in fact, if you look back at some of Carson's exploration of ethics on our LinkedIn, on Carson's LinkedIn profile, you'll find that subject sort of delved into a little deeper. But it turns this abstract concept of ethics. And what I've learned over the years is that people come to the table with their own definition of what ethics means. But it's very clearly defined for you in the PRSA Code of Ethics, which I really like. And in fact, look here, I have the handy little Code of Ethics right here. But and it talks about, treating the information honestly, accurately, about dealing with your clients fairly, but also not enabling them to, disseminate or be a channel for ambiguous or inaccurate information. So it really kind of defines our role as the keeper of the ethics, which a lot of clients depend on, because when you're inside an organization, sometimes it's hard to to detach yourself from the organization narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a third party who's providing PR counsel, who's accredited and who uses the code of ethics as their foundation, it really helps the client support or go back, and if they have to provide pushback or perhaps a different perspective to their executives, it gives them something firmer to grasp onto.
I've heard PR referred to as the conscience of a company, and I just like that. It's, or the compass, or whatever you want to call it. But
that is a good way to say that.
Yeah, so I think that's an important role that you don't often think about in the structure of a company, but it's important.
Yeah. Well, and has your code of ethics and your credential, has it changed the way you communicate outside of work?
That's a great question. Probably. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I think once when you learn things, it becomes a part of you. And I can honestly say, like, I do things totally different. Like, even going back to, like, the RPI process, like, I'll RPI everything.
That's
like,
it has affected it.
So,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I see it pop up, and now that you say that, I'll be more aware of it as I go through my day and stuff.
Absolutely.
But, what about you?
Oh, yeah, I've seen it. I have a couple of examples that I'm like, I don't think that was super ethical of them, but and none of my business, so it has, it's altered thinking, and it's a constant state of growth, I think, a constant state of learning and developing the skill, because it is a skill.
And I think it forces you to lead strategically, to communicate strategically, which I think, but a lot of times we get in the habit of but we throw a lot of tactics at a plan or at a campaign, and they may or may not align with an overall strategy. And then, is there a strategy? Sometimes there's not. Sometimes there's just, here's what we're going to do this year, or for the next 2 years, we're going to do this. And then if you can back into, like, okay, like, let's talk about the strategy. What is the strategy here? Sometimes it completely changes.
That's true.
Yeah. But what gets done, the tactics of a campaign.
Yeah, that's a good point. Looking through everything through the lens of ethics, how that affects and impacts. And
I would say that particularly comes into play and becomes very relevant in crisis situations and in issues management. And we provide a lot of that service, and there's not a lot of focus on that in the APR credentialing process, but that's where the ethics really come into relevance. And you want to talk about your recent credential?
So added to the APR thing, PRSA is such a wealth of knowledge, just a great resource. Just thanks to you and your prompting, allowed me the opportunity to pursue a certificate in crisis communications. Can't recommend the program enough, but it really solidified for me a lot of those tactics and strategies out there that seem really common sense. And I think that's what's really cool about ethics, is it's just about doing what's right. And that's what it leads back to. And it just really helped me understand that these are the touch points that you need to do. It's not a formula, I would say, but it is a process.
It is a process.
And I think when it comes to crisis, and I've heard you say this, when it comes to crisis communications, process serves you the best. We all kind of have that knee-jerk reaction. We all want to do right.
Or make it go away.
Make it go away or something.
That's what we want to do a lot of times.
Before you speak, before you act, go through the process. And that will really guide you in what are the next steps to take. So that's what I took out of that, and I would encourage anybody to go and do that. But definitely our clients, I think that was of most service to them, to know that we've done the legwork for them, and that when they do encounter challenging situations, which we all do, that they have a team that's prepared to respond with them.
Exactly.
So,
ethically, responsibly, accurately, and fun, and having a good time while we do it.
Absolutely.
To somebody unfamiliar, it means you're getting the best of the best practitioner. Now, I feel like there are two ways to look at that, from the perspective of the PR practitioner and then from the perspective of the client. Really, there are three ways. From the perspective of your employer, if you think about it, because being credentialed serves your organization as well, because they're always a client. your organization is. But I think that the value is, it means you've mastered the ability to think strategically, to perform at the highest level of professionalism, and to provide the best counsel. That's what it means. It also means, from the practitioner side, that you have made a commitment to invest in yourself and invest in your career and your growth and your constant learning. And because it is such a huge process and achievement and accomplishment, it is not a box checked. It is a commitment, it's an investment. So there are, I think, values to the APR credential to everybody, internal, external, to the employer, to the individual.
Yeah, because you continue to grow. Even after you get your APR, you have to get so many hours to keep your accreditation, so there's a continued growth there.
Yeah, that's something we haven't talked about a lot. Because APR is not a one and done.
No.
To maintain the credential, you have to commit to a certain number of professional development hours, to a certain number of giving back to the profession, to a certain number of hours of mentoring young professionals. So it is, you don't just get the pin and the certificate to hang on the wall and then you're done. I mean, you have to continue to invest in the profession, the community, and yourself.
You know, for me, you know, I hadn't really thought about it like that before, but before I got my APR, you know, it was a job. I was performing a function kind of thing. But going through that process, I gained an understanding about the profession, about the service, the discipline of all of it, and it made me curious about it. And so you get that, you know, the added value of the continuing education. It does make you, you're the best of the best in that point in time, but then you continue to be through those hours. But I think what it really did is it shifted me to think of my profession being purpose driven from there. So
great way to say that. Yeah, that is a
That's
great way to
awesome
say that.
Yeah, that's a
Did
good way
it
to frame
well?
that.
And so this is a question for you. Did it change as a new, very newly credentialed, 2 years, not brand new, but did it change your perspective of the profession after you'd gone through the process?
Yeah, it did. Like you said, I'm fairly new in my accreditation, and so the value behind getting the accreditation for me was just establishing that baseline of knowledge, and I know what I'm doing and I'm confident in it. Like you said, the kind of the 3 buckets, but even when you're talking to clients coming to the communications group, it established that, okay, she's also an expert on this team. She knows what she's talking about. She's ethical. She's a professional. So that has really helped me, and that's a huge value. But my perspective has changed. I know that we talked about it earlier, but I start to view things differently and of how you can, we need to take a couple steps back and like, let's really talk about that plan and like research some more, dive deeper into before we just jump straight into what we're going to do. We need to think about it a little bit more.
And I would say, I mean, here at the communications group, you lead a team of people, and I think that adds value to them because you have a group of professionals that are younger than you, less experienced. They look up to you and they see you as a leader, not only from, you know, how you go about thinking about things and approaching things, but just your commitment and the way that you carry yourself with that. I think it changes, it affects some of that.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, us 3 being accredited, we're looking at things probably a little differently. Not probably. We are looking at things differently than those that may not be, and so we provide a different insight and different value and a different standard, really, to the products that we.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's a great answer.